You're listening to a Faith Matters podcast.
Yeah, we're back. You are listening to Maree and Denise on Faith Matters, and we're heading into our Becoming Unoffendable segment. It's a blog that Denise writes every week. You can find her blogs on her website, denise.nz. Along with that, if you look down her page or through her pages, you will also find all our podcasts there as well, as you will on Raglan Radio and probably a few other platforms that they pop up on. You never know where you're going to find Faith Matters. It's everywhere.
I've added it this week to Apple Podcasts, and we're going to start I will be today starting a YouTube playlist as well. So
here we go.
It's expanding.
You can't miss us. If you're trying to find us, we will be found, Denise? There we go. So in your blog this week, you've headed it up. It seems so simple, which is nondescript heading right there.
Well, it does.
Yeah, everything seems so simple until you try it.
I was thinking of that analogy of you put a potato or you put an egg in boiling water, one will harden, one will soften. And that was my thought around it seems so simple.
She's done a whole blog on this, folks, so I'm sure there's more there, Denise, because in her blog she goes, we're all different other than identical twins, and even identical twins can have a difference. Mm-hmm. They like to have something that's a point of difference, I'm sure. It just takes one to look to see someone as different to. Okay, it just takes one look to see someone as different to us. Yeah, and I guess your blog is about that. You're talking about we have a potato.
You say potato, I say potato.
Yeah, there we go. And it, in its normal state, it's uncooked and it's hard, but we put it in water and it changes and it softens up. And there's other ways that we can cook that potato, and it's going to have a different texture to it. And so this one product that we start with can have many different looks to it or textures, and so it's multi. I can't say
faceted.
There we go.
I was thinking about, say you're in a family environment and something goes down, whatever that might be, even a real positive thing. You might go to the beach, but somebody gets sunburnt and somebody else tans and somebody else has a swim, and everybody has a different.
Somebody gets sandflies.
Yeah, maybe somebody cuts their foot on something. Speaking from experience, but you go to that beach, you come back and some people are really relaxed and will go, wow, that was amazing. Other people might go, I'm so tired, being out in the sun all that time was exhausting for me. And so when we think about the way that people react, the same circumstance can bring out all sorts of different responses in different people. So that was the simple thing that I was thinking about. But as I went through, I talked about, for some reason, an eggplant. I think because I was talking about eggs and potatoes. I talked about this summer we grew an eggplant in our garden, and we've done that before, but it hasn't come out. This particular eggplant wasn't one of those long, skinny eggplants. It was one that just came out round, and it looked like it was white at first, and it looked like an egg. And I went, oh, this is why they're called eggplants, because none of the other ones I'd ever grown literally looked like an egg. And so as I was talking about eggs and potatoes and water, I was just like, we could talk about aubergines. And then I thought, hang on a second. When you cook aubergines, it's not so important for the small ones, but for the big ones, you need to slice it up before you cook it, sprinkle it with salt, and just leave it for a while, maybe with a paper towel over it to absorb the moisture, because that salt will draw out the bitterness that's in the big aubergines.
I didn't know that, Denise, until I read your blog. I've never done that.
So you're like, oh, aubergines are real bitter. I don't like them.
I like them. I love them. Yeah, but I hadn't done the salt trick, so I'm gonna give that a go and see what the taste is. It's going to be different now.
Yes. Well, it's just with the big ones. If you have sort of smaller ones, it's not so dramatic. But By putting that salt on at that stage while the aubergine's still raw, you draw the bitterness out. But then you think of cooked potato or egg or aubergine and you put the salt on after it's cooked. Well, what you're going to be doing at that point is bring out the flavour. So now, rather than just thinking about an egg's not a vegetable, 2 types of food and hot water, all of a sudden, just by adding salt into the mix, there's all these different nuances of at what point do you put the salt in. If you're mashing or boiling a potato, you might put it into the water as it's cooking, but if you're roasting it or frying it, you might put it in after it's cooked at the end. So all of a sudden, what seemed real simple of put an egg and potato in water, now you're considering when you're going to put the salt on and what effect is the salt going to have.
So you've made this analogy around relationships too, so that we're all different. And you were talking about, I mean, obviously you were talking about identical twins in this, but also people and just in general. And when something happens, you know, we filter our experience through our own lenses. Like we're constantly looking for similarities in people, but you know, we're not going to find a similarity because it depends on the lens we're looking through and what our experience is. And so we can misjudge people, or we can, you know, miss the mark because we are expecting it to be what we think it needs to be, because I've filtered it through this is how I understand what you just said, but I might be right off the mark. Yeah. So when we look at people, we don't always see who they really are. We see who we think they are. And then we're surprised when they don't react the way that we thought they should react. So just being able to look at other people and say, in the same circumstance as me, so that in that same boiling water, they might have an entirely different response. And I mean, some of us deal with some really hard people, and you think, how could that person ever soften? And yet something will happen for them and they may go through a process where they do soften, and you think, I never would have picked it. I thought that person was unreachable, unbreakable. Yeah, and it's a face value thing, you know, like you said, we can see somebody. I mean, you can see somebody with lots of tattoos, or, you know, maybe piercings, or things that, you know, aren't normally, well, not that it's not normal to see that, but, you know, that you go, oh, wow, that person looks like they're quite tough, or they're quite hard, or they're quite, you know, there's more going on, you know, for them than what I can see within other people, because you can see it outwardly, and we make a judgment call. But often, you know, the people I've met are, you know, like that, are quite soft, and they're quite approachable, and, you know, it's an expression of themselves, and for whatever reasons that they do that. But we can make these judgment calls based on how people dress or how they present themselves, and almost put them in a box before we've even, you know, gotten to know them and had a conversation with them.
For sure. Sometimes people that surprise us with maybe a really strong sense of loyalty or some real strong characteristic that we wouldn't have necessarily picked. But that salt, when we add the salt aspect in, I thought that was something worth pondering, because if you put the salt on those aubergines early, it has and leave them sitting there for a while. So I think sometimes in this microwave world, we try and do things quickly. So we might have come across somebody who is struggling with stuff and they have become bitter, and we're just like, oh, just do this and boop, 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 and expect that they'll just formula. Just be able to let that go. Out comes the bitterness. Off we go. But that salt needs to sit on that aubergine for a while and just allow gently over time. That will draw the bitterness out. So perhaps with people, we need to actually give time for things to land, for them to process stuff, for things to be drawn out, and allow people space, not push them through the process. But then say this aubergine is now cooked and they didn't have the salt put on them at the beginning, well, now your salt's going to have a different effect. So now if you sprinkle them with salt, you're like, come on, I'm trying to draw the bitterness out of you. And it's like, it's not the right stage in the process. So we try and throw stuff at people, maybe out of sync or out of timing or out of the space, in the wrong space for where they're at. And we try and all these good things to try and help and try and help them to grow. But those things don't always have the effect that we hoped.
And it's not linear, eh?
No.
It's all over the place. I think when we are going through a transition, and people are, not watching us, but are present in that transition. If it takes too long, they kind of think, well, it's been a long time now. I thought you would have changed, and that can take you 10 steps back rather than 10 steps forward, because you're now thinking, well, now I've taken too long. I'm not at the place they thought I was. Huge disappointment there.
Yes, and now I'm a failure, and now...
So you go backwards again.
Yep.
Back to where you were. Not quite maybe at the beginning of your journey, but, you will go backwards and you start to have self-doubts.
Or at least you feel isolated.
Absolutely, and it's hard to find... it is hard to find people who will journey alongside you without judgment, without their flavour trying to come in and change you, because they desperately want good things for you, and they desperately want you to be in a good place, but it's not happening.
Yeah.
And so disappointment all the way around, but it's actually not, because every, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward. It's this little dance we do of life until we get to a place where we've actually got enough strength or enough salt in us that we're, the bitterness is coming out, or that the flavour is starting to marinate and bring a point of difference.
When I think of bitterness, I think of the sliding journey that starts with maybe developing resentment because we're not releasing this person, we're not forgiving this person, so we start to get a little bit antsy, and then we might get angry, we might get bitter. If we don't deal with that, we keep sliding down that slide towards, I hate it when they do that. And that slide just keeps going, and if you keep going down that slide, you can actually end up violence and things like that start to come forward, because that bitterness, that root of bitterness that began, and resentment hasn't been pulled out, and it grows. And so I think the salt in that analogy for me is really important. And the salt, the only way that I am aware of that we can step away from bitterness is actually to release somebody or to forgive them. And for some people, just that, if you took that salt at that point with the aubergine, if you put that as forgiving somebody, some people need to sit with that idea of forgiveness. They can't just go, oh yeah, sweet, I'll forgive. It can take time to let it go even once, let alone over and over and over, to the point that you can actually leave your hand open and just let them be.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. Forgiveness for me, it took a long time. In fact, I stopped talking about it or asking about it because it took so long, and I think that people thought that I should have gotten it by now. This is, this is how you do it, or this is the way to do it. But no, there was that those didn't work for me. Nothing worked. It didn't make sense to me. And without forgiveness, the one who hurts is yourself. You are hurting yourself because you're playing the scenario, the trauma, whatever it is, over and over and over again, and the hate or the whatever's sitting there for you, it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's a hard one to shift, because you feel somebody needs to be responsible, or somebody was to blame here, and nobody knows that, or nobody is taking any notice of the other person that that you're feeling this bitterness towards. But in reality, they have no idea, and they're just doing their life, and they're not concerned by your bitterness. They're not concerned by your hatred or whatever it is that's sitting there for you. So it's a slow burning fire that if you don't do the process well, it will reignite in different forms and different ways.
Ooh.
And that's the problem. I mean, I've noticed that in my own life. If I haven't dealt with something, and I've still got it sitting there, and I'm trying to, how would I put that? For everyone else to think that I've sorted all this out, and I haven't. I'm still trying to deal with that. If something rises up in my life, and suddenly I'm firing off, it's because, wow, there you go, I haven't actually dealt with it at all. I've just kind of done the process, but I haven't actually done the healing. I haven't actually gone to those hard places. And a good place to start in many ways is forgiveness of self, that we didn't know what we didn't know, and being able to forgive yourself and being able to release and let something go. And that those words coming out my mouth, I mean, I heard those words from other people when I was on my journey, to be able to release and let go and forgive somebody. And they're just, at the end of the day, they become words that, what am I supposed to do with that? How do I do that? For me, it was my faith. It was my journey with God, and God showed me how to forgive a certain place in my life that was holding me captive, was holding me in great distress and trauma, and it was affecting my health and my relationships and how I did life. Without that forgiveness, I couldn't have shifted from where I was, and it was a hard journey, Denise. It was not easy, and God knew that. I mean, Pastor Roger was talking about in Pastor's Corner, God doesn't move from us, and God hadn't moved from me, even though I didn't really know him in the sense that I needed to know him at that point in my life. He certainly came into my life, and when I reached out and gave me absolute gold on how to heal and how to be restored and how to lay something down and never pick it up again, and never have. And I'm so grateful for that, because no amount of human words gave me what I needed to be able to cross that barrier that I had there of unforgiveness to forgiveness.
Powerful.
Yeah, you're listening to Maree and Denise on Faith Matters. Well, it's actually, that's our show, but this segment is Becoming Unoffendable, and we're talking all things aubergine.
I should have worn purple.
Aubergine, potatoes and eggs.
Yep. This is a show for foodies.
There we go.
If only I knew how to make them taste good.
Yeah, well, I didn't know to put salt on aubergine. Now I know. I learnt something today. But we started talking about a little bit of my own story around forgiveness and bitterness and what it does when we hold it in. And
So there was another part of this blog which went into double cooked food groups like bagels, biscotti, and smashed potato.
Oh, I eat those. There we go. The two BBs, I don't know about those ones.
I used to make bagels when the kids were little. You have to make the dough, and you have to put it into a little ring, and then you have to boil it. You actually boil it, and then you take it out and cook it in the oven. Double cooking.
Why did I think it was done in oil? There you go. I don't know. See, I've never cooked them.
No, not bagels.
Okay.
So with potato, sometimes you will do something like you'll cook it up and you might then smash it flat and crisp it up in the oven. So what was already cooked just maybe boiled to start it, and then you make it real tasty. You'll add some flavour, put some salt on it, put some nice stuff on it. And actually the process that potato has had to go through to become that smashed potato is pretty hard going. Like, you literally squash the thing and split open its skin. It's quite brutal.
Wonderful.
I'd like to apologise for all vegans out there for today's show for the way that we're talking about vegetables, but it's so, again, it's an analogy for people, because there are people who just go through stuff that is so hard.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Denise.
Yeah. And when you go through those things, I think in the middle of it, like when you've already been cooked, you've already gone through stuff, and now the pressure's coming on, so much so that you actually crack from the pressure. That's a horrible thing to go through. And I think a lot of people who go through that feel pretty broken, thinking perhaps hopeless. They don't see a future or anything to look forward to, because they're just in survival mode, just enduring this awful thing.
Yeah, that's a survival mode, yeah.
So, yet, when you have those, going back to the food concept, when you have those things that are double cooked, have been through the process more so than other foods, they're really tender, they're really delicious. And there are some people, when you look at older people, I think people by then tend to fall into one of two camps. They're either really lovely or they're really not.
Unfortunately, yes. You've picked your side.
But that bitterness aspect that we were talking about before, how we were talking about how it develops, resentment, bitterness, becomes anger, it kind of travels down this road and it grows. And I think as we get older, we tend to, as you say, pick our camp. We tend to be growing in a particular direction, and we've either staked ourselves and been intentional with how we've grown, or we've just grown wild. But thinking about these people who have been through some really, really hard stuff, often it's in those hard places that we learn the deepest things. And so some of those people come out just beautiful if they learn stuff as they go. If they are able to release and let stuff go, they become someone that they could never have been in their previous state.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I cast my mind back many years, Denise, there's no way I would have had a vision of my life. I mean, I didn't even expect to live past 30, probably the latest. I would never have had any vision of my life at all, of living what I consider to be quite a normal life now, whatever that means to people. But to me, that's being satisfied, being happy, being, a kind person, I think. I hope.
Or at least
but
she tries.
I've also got some wisdom there. I don't take things at face value. I know everyone has a story. Everyone has a story. And people aren't the way they are for no reason. It's whether we're willing to do the hard yards and do the journey. And that even saying that sentence in itself, that's 10 years sitting right there. It's not like today I'm going to decide to not do this. And, like some people like to exercise, they're going to start today, and we all know they all fizzle out within a couple of months, unless those really committed ones who are, and they love it and they carry on and they reach their goal. That's not so easy on a trauma journey. Often we opt out of it right at the beginning, and we've got to start again. And then we opt out again because it's just the too hard basket, because it's just layer. It's like an onion, layer upon layer upon layer. You take one layer off and another one gets exposed, and on it goes. And you're like, is there no end to this? When do I get to the gold? When do I get to that place where I feel that I'm a complete person again? And it takes a long time. But what I can say about that is that, being on the journey, it might take 10 years, it might take 20 years, it might take 5 years. I don't know. Everyone is so different. It's like your blog. We're all so different on how we work through something. But being on the journey is better than not being on the journey. You're on the journey and being kind and gentle to yourself along the way. that there are going to be some pit stops, there are going to be some deep holes that you're going to fall into. That's okay, because you will come out of them again if you just keep going and keep being on the journey. And it's not tedious, it's not, because every time you're learning something, it's something new, and when you learn that something new, it's fresh and you go, oh, this feels great, and so this layer that's come off is exposed a newness that you didn't feel before, you haven't experienced before, and so that'll carry you until the next layer needs to be exposed, and then here we go, another hole I'm going to drop into. I thought I'd been through it all. I thought I'd experienced all of that, and I don't have to do that again. But oh no, you do, because you're not healed yet. You're not at that place where you can actually your trauma or whatever you've been through is now something that strengthens your life. You're no longer weakened by it. If I look back on my life, and it's massive, the things that I've experienced and walked through. It's no little journey. It's a big journey, and there's no one thing. There's many things, and so each one of them, I couldn't have said it like 10 years ago. I couldn't have said, or maybe even 8 years ago, I couldn't have said, this is my strength. Now I can say this is my strength. I'm not taken out by this. I can communicate. I can talk to you about that. I can help you through this journey by the experiences I've been through and what's worked for me. It may not work for you, but it's where I found my peace and my healing, and that's very much in my faith. It's been a faith journey.
It's interesting that you say that, because when I think of things that come up for me, often they circle around and you deal with them one time, and it can take ages. It might take months just to process that thing that came up, and your mind shoots down a particular track and you kind of have to reel yourself back in. But then you deal with it, and then the next time it comes around, you're like, oh, not this again, and you deal with it again, but it's maybe that little bit quicker, or maybe the emotions don't go quite so deep, or maybe you manage to do it without burning bridges with other people the way that you used to. And what you can do is that thing comes round and round and round and round again, is actually try and notice the growth.
Absolutely.
Because although you're facing that with the onion, every time you take a layer off, you're actually hitting a smaller skin. And eventually you do get to the core. And so, I've got stuff that comes up every now and then, and it used to come up a lot, and it would take me months and months to deal with it. And more recently, it came up, and I probably was dealing with it for a couple of weeks, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done this round.
Yeah, that's such a freeing feeling, eh? And you're right to notice it. I don't think I did notice it in my early walk, in my early journey. I wouldn't have noticed any real significant change in myself. I think it was more the encouragement I got from others, and maybe they noticed the change, or maybe they noticed small things and brought it to my attention. I was like, but I didn't believe it. I wasn't at a place where my stinking thinking was, it was healed, and I didn't think like that about myself anymore. So, even though the encouragement was so good and what I needed, it didn't sink in. But it still gave me snippets, enough to get through, enough, enough to make the next step.
But thinking about the trajectory that you've been on for years of growing, and now thinking back to last year when you had that really difficult journey, I think you noticed in yourself a difference and a strengthening through that time.
Yeah, for sure. So Denise is alluding to, I went through some cancer treatment, and that was... It was a different journey than I've ever had in my life, Denise. I've had trauma journeys, right? Deep trauma. This was an illness or something that, was left field to me. And when I first, before I got the diagnosis, actually, I I got a word from God that I was going to go through some stuff, and it was going to be hard, but I was going to get through it. Right? That was it. And then I had a year before my diagnosis where I was really unwell, and we didn't get to a diagnosis, but I thought by the end of the year that I was feeling better, and it was all over. That this was the year that now I'd done the journey, but it was actually just starting. And then I had another year of where I got the diagnosis, and I had to go through treatment. And wow, there was definitely times where I didn't think my body would be able to do the treatment, what I was going through. And it was extremely hard on me because I had a very bad reaction to chemo and the radiotherapy. And yeah, so what was meant to be maybe not such a bad journey ended up being a really bad journey, and some time in hospital. And I'm still healing in my, insides are still restoring. But there were times that I felt in my natural state I wasn't going to survive this, but I knew what God had said to me. And I knew that even though this was difficult, I was going to get through it. And that is something I really, really held on to. Even though it felt difficult at times, I knew I was going to get through it. That's it. I can't say it any other way. It might have felt like everything was crashing around me. There was another word that I got from an older gentleman in our church, dear old Roger Trollive, actually, not Roger Peart, who's our pastor. But he got a word from God saying, "It is done." It is done. It is finished. It is done.
Wow.
And it was just, and when he gave me that word, the look on his face and how he had received that word from God, I think it was more the look on his face more than anything, because he genuinely had heard from God, and he was just really wanted me to receive that word and let it sink in. And it aligned with what God had said to me as well. So, there were certain things that were kind of like stakes in the ground that gave me reassurance that even though this is really difficult and this is really hard, you're going to get through it. And so I knew I was going to have life, even in the moments where I felt like I couldn't see that around me. So a different journey, but the strength of my faith and the strength of my belief and just the strength in me of the words that were given to me, I believed them, and they gave me massive hope.
But I have observed in you perhaps a strength of character since then that it's just been magnified.
Yeah, I guess that is true too. There's something in me that has shifted in that journey. I'm still processing that myself. It's almost like something shifted, and I'm not afraid anymore, Denise. I don't want to. Life is life. It's an incredible gift that we have, and we only get one shot at it. We don't get another chance at this, and there's never going to be another me or another you. We are so unique. We are incredible beings. What a special time we are born into. We're all born into this time together. Yep. Everyone on this earth, here we are together in this time, in this place, in this century. It's an incredible thing. It's getting messed up in a lot of ways, but if we could bring it right back down to, oh my gosh, do we understand how precious life is? Just to be born is an incredible gift. To have life and experience it. Look, I know what it is to have depression. I know what it is to have anxiety. And those things can hide us away, and we don't get to feel the specialness of life. And now I get to feel that. Now I get to feel, wow, I get to be here. I'm not going to get another shot at this, so just give it your best. Give it your all. Give it everything you've got, because this is it. This is your moment. This is your time.
So that... when I think of your story as you're talking about it, I didn't think of that as I was writing it, but that twice cooked you talked about how you'd been through that traumatic time in your life and how over years you worked through that. But now it's like this illness journey is another thing that people looking in would go, really? Of all people, like, surely she's dealt with so much. Does she have to deal with that too? Yep,
I thought that too. I was like that. Like, really? I mean, hasn't it been enough already? But the insights I get and how I engage with things that are happening around me now, or what I feel a sense of joy about, or things that I love, or it's just it's been marinated. It's all the goodness is coming out, and like I say, I'm not afraid anymore. For many years, always afraid of what other people think or what they're going to say or how I've affected them, or, has my poison gone into them? Have I poisoned them with my own poison? Now I don't think those things anymore. If I think if something's not right, I'm going to say it. If I feel that somebody's done an awesome or exceptional thing, I'm going to say it to them. I'm not going to hold things back. Or if I want to laugh and giggle or dance around or be silly or just tell my truth, I'm going to do it, because I don't get to come back in 50 years and change this. This is it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think your story now of what you've just been sharing is a case in point. Like, for somebody who's been through a lot, to be able to say that now is so powerful. And so for all you listeners out there, you are blessed to have the opportunity to have Maree speak into your life each week. Because it's true. She has lived a lot and has been through a lot and can speak from a place of healing. And there are, not everybody makes it to that place. So,
that part saddens me. We're looking for all the answers out there, but it's a journey. It really is one step at a time, and it's the people you surround yourself. It's the, I think a big one for me was getting inside my own thinking too, and realising how I spoke to myself, and how I responded to myself, which was toxic as. It was very toxic. So the journey is massive. But man, what an awesome journey to get through. Like, what an awesome journey to do. I'm so pleased. It's almost cliche to say I wouldn't change anything, because, I actually wouldn't, because I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be the Maree that's sitting here today. I wouldn't know the things that I know, or have the understandings or the empathy, or, everyone's got a story. Everyone comes from somewhere. We're all coming through life with something. We need to be so kind and gentle to each other, and have compassion, and know where to put the boundaries down too, and know when to say no, and know when something isn't for you. All those things are good and healthy things to do. They mean you respect yourself and you value yourself, as you do other people.
So, there, you heard it here.
Right here on Becoming Unoffendable, Faith Matters. There we go.
So, a couple of things I wrote near the end of this thing. When you're puzzled about the way someone reacted, realise that there are many more factors influencing them than you thought. It seems so simple. That was the name of the blog, and we started with that idea of just putting an egg and a potato in water, yet where we've landed is just the rich depth of life's journey, and how all of us will react different ways. All of us go through different stuff, and all of us have the choice on our journey of whether we are going to let things go and we're going to choose to walk a path of healing and growth, or whether we're going to choose to not marinate in that salt. And that salt, you can think of salt as salt water. It gets into a wound and it stings a bit. Sometimes sitting with that salt can sting.
Yeah, but it's healing.
But drawing out that bitterness, what a powerful thing.
Yeah, it is.
You've been listening to a Faith Matters podcast. If you have questions, email us on faithmatters98.1fm@gmail.com.